There's a brutal truth that almost no one admits out loud. You've been used by someone, and you probably didn't even realize it. This doesn't happen because you're weak, naive, or overly emotional. It happens because opportunistic people are experts at disguise. They master the appearance of virtue, praise you when they want something, disappear when you need them, and reappear when you become useful again. Machiavelli would call this politics guided by reality, not by ideals. But most people prefer to believe in the good intentions of others, even when the signs are screaming in front of them. The most dangerous part? Those who use you never come up to you saying, "I'm using you." They operate in silence, manipulate through guilt, distort boundaries, exploit your goodwill, and even make you feel wrong for finally saying no. And while you try to keep the peace, they test you, advance, take up space, until you realize you're already emotionally exhausted. The end justifies the means, but in this case, it's their means, not yours. Today, you're going to learn something no one has taught you. There are 7 clear, almost mathematical signs that reveal when someone is taking advantage of you. And when you understand these signs, you regain your power, your clarity, and your ability to choose who deserves to stay. Get ready. After this video, some people will no longer have a place in your life, and that will be liberating. When the world collapses, true human nature emerges with almost painful clarity. It is at this moment that the individual realizes that loyalty is never measured in days of celebration, but rather in those hours when silence weighs more than the crisis itself. Machiavelli always insisted that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, reveals who is truly on the leader's side when the castle shakes. People who disappear in difficult times carry a message they themselves ignore. They were not there because of ties, but for convenience. And this disappearance, often wrapped in elegant excuses, shows that the end justifies the means is not just a phrase, it is a mirror of human behavior. Abandonment creates strategic scars because it teaches that whoever fails once will fail again. It's a pattern, not an accident. And recognizing this pattern requires virtù and fortuna, that mixture of calculated courage and timing that distinguishes leaders from the naive. He learns that in turbulent times, each absence speaks louder than 1,000 speeches. When someone disappears at the moment their presence would be crucial, it's not just a failure, it's a diagnosis. The absence becomes a silent declaration of disloyalty, and that's where the importance of the calculated use of force arises. Not in a physical sense, but psychologically, setting boundaries. Repeatedly forgiving betrayal communicates that there are no consequences, and this encourages further defections. It's like placing untrained soldiers in your own loyal armies. The risk is always internal. An experienced mentor would explain that just as an investor abandons stocks without solid fundamentals, a leader must abandon relationships that demonstrate structural flaws. Constant adaptability allows the individual to act without resentment, but strategically. If a person truly wants to apply this to daily life, they can begin by observing who only appears to reap the rewards, never to plant them. This small exercise already shows who deserves to continue participating in their private kingdom. Betrayal in times of crisis doesn't erupt like thunder. It trickles in. First, an awkward silence. Then, a delay. Next, an excuse. And before you know it, the person has disappeared precisely when their presence would have defined the course of events. Machiavelli would say that it is better to be feared than loved in these moments, not out of cruelty, but to avoid being hated for allowing the weakness of others to harm you. Those who abandon once will abandon again, because their moral compass points not to loyalty, but to comfort. And however harsh it may seem, tolerating this is to relinquish one's own authority. The leader understands that the appearance of virtue in these individuals is as fragile as a castle built on sand. And as he observes the patterns repeating themselves, the leader begins to perceive something bigger. If the crisis revealed traitors, the next step will reveal cowards, and these can be even more dangerous. A coward in power always seems harmless at first glance because his appearance of virtue often deceives even the most attentive. He speaks beautifully, promises calm, cites morality, tries to project serenity, but inside he trembles more than a soldier's apprentice in his first loyal and independent armies. Machiavelli wrote that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, reveals the danger of these hesitant leaders. They don't err because they do too much, but because they do nothing. And omission in the game of power is fatal. This hesitation infects the team like a silent virus. When the top trembles, everything below crumbles. An experienced mentor would say, observe how a leader decides under pressure. There lies his essence. If he needs external approval for every step, he will never lead anyone anywhere. Does the end justify the means? Not exactly. Here, the end justifies the movement, and the coward simply doesn't move. Cowardice, disguised as prudence, destroys more than outright incompetence. It silently sabotages trust, transforming simple decisions into endless, pointless arguments. It's common to see these leaders using careful deliberation as a shield to justify their inaction. But in practice, this only prevents the calculated use of force, the kind of firm decision Machiavelli valued in any commander who wished to avoid being hated and maintain respect. To apply this to real life, simply observe. When a leader faces a problem, do they act or retreat? For example, a manager who postpones difficult conversations or a parent who avoids setting essential limits is relinquishing their authority. Virtù and fortuna favor those who act, not those who hide behind pretty words. And the more the leader hesitates, the more fear spreads from top to bottom like a contagious disease. It's curious how the fear of a single individual can paralyze an entire group. A cowardly leader always calculates imaginary risks, but never calculates the real cost of indecision. He fears making mistakes when he should fear not deciding. Machiavelli would say that decisions based on real human nature require courage, constant adaptability, and a willingness to face the consequences, because, in the end, it's better to be feared than loved when you need to protect the structure. Hesitation in leadership positions turns the team into spectators, never protagonists, and this silently corrodes everyone's morale. A practical example: think of companies where employees avoid innovating because they know the leader never approves anything new. The environment becomes an endless waiting room. And while this leader tries to preserve his image, he doesn't realize he's opening space for another type of threat, one that uses praise as a disguise. Flatterers are, paradoxically, the most endearing enemies one can have. They don't come with swords, they come with flattery. They don't attack head-on, they attack through ego. Machiavelli warned that the appearance of virtue can be the most fatal trap in the game of power, and no one masters this art like the flatterer. He approaches smiling, agreeing with everything, celebrating even your mistakes as if they were genius. He seems loyal, but he isn't. He's only loyal to the opportunity to be near the warmth of power. And the individual who doesn't practice a politics guided by reality, not by ideals, ends up confusing this false admiration with genuine recognition. The leader who relies on flatterers loses discernment because he begins to see the world through lenses that distort the truth. And when that happens, the end justifies the means, but the means end up destroying the end. After all, those who only listen to applause never listen to warnings. Flatterers turn leaders into puppets of their own egos, and this happens so subtly that many only realize it when they've already lost half their power. Machiavelli explained that decisions based on real human nature require the courage to hear the uncomfortable truth, not just praise that massages pride. Therefore, flatterers are dangerous. They remove the leader's ability to correct course. For those who wish to apply this to their own lives, the test is simple. Observe who praises you when you deserve it and who praises you constantly. The first is an ally, the second is a parasite. Virtù and fortuna favor those who surround themselves with people who challenge, confront, and question. These are the true loyal armies. And curiously, these rare allies tend to be less noisy and more sincere. They don't try to avoid being hated, they only try to prevent you from falling into the abyss of self-sabotage. The flatterer never openly disagrees because he is not interested in the truth, but in the proximity of the benefit. He is like an actor who learns exactly which lines please the audience and repeats them endlessly, until the leader, accustomed to this theater, loses the ability to perceive manipulation. Machiavelli would say that the calculated use of force in this context is simply cutting off access to those who only agree with everything. Constant adaptability requires the leader to filter advice, especially those that seem too good to be true. And, to avoid being hated by himself in the future, he learns to value those who point out flaws with respect, but firmness. These are the true allies, because they challenge when necessary. And it is precisely this challenge that opens a natural loop. If flattery weakens the leader, imagine what happens when someone decides to challenge him publicly and gets away with it. Power doesn't reside solely in actions, it resides primarily in perception. It's a silent theater where everyone observes the leader to see if he truly is untouchable. Machiavelli always emphasized that politics guided by reality, not ideals, demands that the leader understand the psychology of the stage. Whoever challenges in public isn't speaking only to you, but to the audience. The first time someone openly questions your authority, the impact isn't in the criticism itself, but in what observers conclude about your position. If the leader doesn't respond, doubt flourishes. If they respond weakly, authority crumbles. That's why, in this context, the end justifies the means, not as cruelty, but as structural preservation. Power needs to be seen as firm, or it evaporates. Whoever disguises this moment behind an appearance of virtue loses control without realizing it, and a single unpunished challenge is enough to inaugurate a new era of testing. When someone publicly challenges a leader without facing consequences, a seed is planted in the hearts of the onlookers. If he can do it, why couldn't I? This thought is more dangerous than any external enemy because it corrodes the internal foundation of one's own loyal armies. Machiavelli would explain that decisions based on real human nature acknowledge a simple fact. People always test the limits they perceive as weak. To apply this to everyday life, think of a teacher who never sets limits. Soon the students turn the classroom into a carnival. Or a boss who never gives firm feedback. Soon the team acts as they please. Virtù and fortuna belong to those who exercise calculated use of force, not violence, but clarity, an assertive, objective, and proportionate response. This response is not about ego, it's about sending the right message to the silently observing audience. A public challenge is always greater than the challenger. It represents the symbolic rupture of authority, and everyone sees it. Therefore, the wise leader understands that the goal is not to humiliate, but to restore the structure. It is better to be feared than loved, said Machiavelli, not because love is useless, but because respectful fear guarantees order where the simplicity of emotions fails. By responding with strategic firmness, the leader demonstrates constant adaptability and prevents small rebellions from turning into larger movements. This also avoids being hated, because just firmness inspires respect, not resentment. And while he restores order, he perceives another, even more dangerous dynamic emerging in the shadows, one in which some show gratitude while receiving benefits. but reveal their true colors when they cease to receive them. Ingratitude, as we shall see, is often the prelude to betrayal. Ingratitude is perhaps one of the most treacherous weapons that exist because it can only be used by those who have received something first. It is a wound that never originates in enemy territory, but always within the walls. Machiavelli warned that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, demands recognizing an uncomfortable fact. The ungrateful often become the greatest traitors. They receive help, protection, opportunities, and when the tide turns, they act as if nothing had been offered. The person who confuses mercy with obligation will never be loyal, and that is why, in this field, the end justifies the means when it comes to setting clear limits. Mercy given to the wrong person feeds an emotional parasite, someone who grows at the expense of your energy, but disappears when you need them. The appearance of virtue in these people is always impeccable until the day you stop giving. Observing how people react when they stop receiving favors is one of the most valuable lessons Machiavelli could leave any modern leader, because that's when true human nature explodes to the surface. Some remain loyal, others maturely withdraw, and others reveal a side that would never appear while they were being favored. For those who wish to apply this to daily life, the test is simple. Stop offering favors for a while and observe. Constant adaptability requires courage to allow the world to reveal itself without your concessions. Virtù and fortuna belong to those who recognize that gratitude is behavior, not discourse. A true ally of their own loyal armies demonstrates loyalty even when they gain nothing. The ungrateful person, however, upon losing privileges, transforms the lack of advantages into resentment, a dangerous seed that can later justify silent betrayals. Ingratitude is a declaration. Your kindness doesn't matter. And this, coming from someone who received your help, is more dangerous than any outright attack. Machiavelli said that it's better to be feared than loved in these contexts, not out of cruelty, but to avoid being hated by yourself in the future. Hated for tolerating those who don't deserve it. The calculated use of force here means cutting privileges, distancing yourself elegantly, setting firm limits. Ungrateful people see loyalty as a transaction, not as a moral bond. And when they realize you no longer offer advantages, many try to weaken you to recover what they lost. That's why great leaders develop decisions based on real human nature. They don't expect gratitude, they observe behavior. And by observing, they begin to notice another type of threat, more subtle, more intelligent, and much more dangerous. Ambition without loyalty. Ambition in itself is not dangerous. What is dangerous is the ambitious man without loyalty. He smiles but calculates. He agrees but observes. He participates but never commits. Machiavelli explained that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, makes it clear that whoever desires advancement without commitments is always a silent threat. These individuals are the human version of landmines, quiet, immobile, but destructive when someone steps in the wrong place. They never disagree openly because they know that direct confrontation exposes intentions. They prefer to act beneath the surface. The appearance of virtue is their main defense. Virtù and fortuna, in this case, belong to the leader capable of perceiving the coldness behind good manners. Does the end justify the means? Here, the end justifies careful monitoring. After all, such men do not serve the project. They only use it as a stepping stone. The ambitious man without loyalty doesn't need to declare war. He simply waits for the right storm. Meanwhile, he observes the leader's mistakes, identifies weaknesses, and gathers information as if forming his own loyal but invisible armies. Machiavelli would say that decisions based on real human nature require attention to these signs. You can recognize this type of person when they avoid difficult tasks but are always present when there are advantages to be gained. If you want to apply this to real life, just notice who only appears when the lights are on, and never when there is dark work. The calculated use of force here doesn't mean physically eliminating, but rather limiting access, cutting privileges, demanding accountability. Constant adaptability teaches that the leader should not act out of paranoia, but out of strategic observation. And observing these individuals is like watching the formation of a shadow that grows slowly. An ambitious man without loyalty never rebels openly, because he knows that direct confrontation requires courage, and true courage doesn't mix with opportunism. He prefers to move through the cracks, waiting for the moment when the leader is weakened to try to seize power. That's why Machiavelli insisted it's better to be feared than loved when it comes to maintaining order, not out of vanity, but to avoid being hated for underestimating an internal traitor. The appearance of virtue in this type of man is impeccable, and that makes it even more dangerous. Virtù and fortuna favor leaders who maintain this profile, bound to their own destiny, offering paths that benefit them only if they remain loyal. If that doesn't work, it's necessary to remove them before they become a real threat. And when that danger is neutralized, another type of enemy appears, one who uses morality as a weapon. Few weapons are as effective as morality when used by those who have no morals at all. These individuals know exactly how to manipulate public opinion. They create impossible standards, demand perfect conduct, require absolute purity, and when the leader fails to meet one of these unrealistic expectations, they use it as ammunition. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, protects the leader from this type of attack because it reveals that no one is capable of reaching these invented standards. These people do not seek integrity. They seek power. The appearance of virtue is merely a disguise, and the most curious thing is that when confronted, the leader appears tyrannical. When ignored, appears guilty. It's a brilliant trap. Constant adaptability is therefore essential. Does the end justify the means? In this case, the means is to see deeper. Those who condemn in public do not want to correct. They want to replace. False morality always needs an audience because without spectators, it loses its power. It depends on the gaze of others to gain impact. Machiavelli said that decisions based on real human nature reveal that those who accuse too much usually wish to hide their own flaws. These are people who demand from their leader what they would never practice themselves. And when they try to use morality as a weapon, they do not do so out of love for good, but to weaken leadership. To apply this in practice, simply observe, when someone criticizes you in public, is the intention to help you or to show off? Those who truly want to help talk in private, those who want a stage, criticize in front of everyone. Virtù and fortuna continue to favor leaders who recognize this dynamic and do not fall into the emotional trap. And the calculated use of force here means responding calmly, clearly, and intelligently, never with despair. Those who use morality as a weapon hope that the leader will react emotionally because an impulsive reaction fuels their narrative. This is why Machiavelli argued that it is better to be feared than loved in these moments, not out of cruelty, but to avoid being hated for succumbing to manipulation. Constant adaptability allows the leader to refuse the game, maintaining a firm stance without falling into provocation. He knows that not all accusers deserve a response, and that often the attempt to defend oneself reinforces the illusion of guilt. An experienced mentor would say, "True morality is silent, false morality needs a microphone." And when the leader understands this logic, something greater becomes clear. Power is only maintained when he decides exactly what can be tolerated and what cannot. And this understanding opens the way directly to Machiavelli's final message. Machiavelli always taught that true power is born not from blind love nor from brute fear, but from a precise understanding of what cannot be forgiven. A strong leader is not one who punishes excessively, but one who punishes early, before small cracks become irreparable fissures. He understands that empires rarely fall due to external attacks. They rot from within when they tolerate what should have been cut off at the first sign. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that loyalty is not guaranteed. It is cultivated, reinforced, and, when betrayed, must be treated as a strategic warning. Virtue and fortune favor leaders who recognize that not everyone deserves a second chance, and that mercy without criteria destroys more than it builds. The end justifies the means when the means preserve the structure that protects everyone, and ignoring this allows disorder to silently take hold. When a leader tolerates betrayal, sycophants, ingrates, and cowards, he is not being kind. He is creating a silent law that weakens his own authority, the idea that loyalty is unnecessary. This causes his own loyal armies to doubt the firmness of his command and allows opportunists to feel free to act. Machiavelli would remind us that decisions based on real human nature need to recognize that not everyone has good intentions and that many are simply waiting for a chance to advance when the leader falters. Constant adaptability here means observing without naivete, acting without hesitation, and cutting off without remorse that which threatens the stability of the project. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, is merely a reminder that respect is sustained by the clarity of limits. The calculated use of force preserves order, avoids chaos, and protects even the innocent. Never allow your throne to become a stage for others' performances. Machiavelli would say that the appearance of virtue can deceive the public for a time, but the truth always reveals who is building and who is merely acting. A solid leader sees these dynamics before they become crises, because he learns the difference between true loyalty and performative loyalty. This discernment protects his power, his peace, and his real allies. Virtù and fortuna accompany those who know how to observe patterns, anticipate movements, and act before the threat flourishes. And when the leader understands that every trace of disorder contains the germ of a future downfall, he develops the courage to do what is necessary. The end justifies the means when the means preserve the legacy, and this understanding opens the perfect portal for you to recognize, in practice, who is really using you, and how to cut that person off immediately. Now that you know these signs, the question that really matters is simple. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to continue allowing some people to drain your energy, your peace, and your confidence? Or are you finally going to act like someone who understands their own strength? Machiavelli said that tolerating what weakens us is the first step towards losing control over our own lives. And you're not here to lose, you're here to awaken. Think about the relationships around you. Who always receives and never gives? Who only shows up when they need something? Who gets offended when you set boundaries? Who tries to shift the blame when you finally say no? If these signs have sparked some insight within you, it's not by chance, it's awareness. And awareness is what separates those who continue to be used from those who begin to clearly choose who deserves to stay. So answer me this. Which of these 7 truths struck you first? Who was the first person that came to mind while you were watching? And most importantly, what are you going to do from now on? If you want to continue strengthening your perception, your emotional strength, and your life strategy, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you'll never walk in the dark again